G'day folks. Well, all this talk of North Africa on the channel lately really has me reminiscing about the time I visited North Africa. Back in August 2012, I visited El Alamein and some of the sites in the local area. The context to this was that earlier in the year I'd secured some funding as a historian by the Australian government to visit Egypt and Lebanon and possibly Libya to document the accessibility of sites of relevance to Australians in the area. So these were principally Commonwealth War Graves Commission cemeteries. They were war memorials in the area. They were battlefield sites and other historical sites of interest. As I've discussed recently, the Australian 6th and 9th Division were both in North Africa. Many Australians lost their lives in this area. There are a large number, I don't have the numbers off the top of my head, but a large number of Australian cemeteries in this area. Sorry, graves within the Commonwealth War Grave Commission cemeteries in this area. So it was our job, myself and a photographer, my photographer, a good friend, Christopher Karakides, went out to Egypt in August. We had a research assistant back home in Australia who helped us with the research processes. And the net result was we took thousands of photographs. We spoke to a lot of people in the area, and we put together a website that was designed to help Australians travelling to these sites, to inform them of really the core information that they needed to know before they went out to visit El Alamein. For example, the El Alamein battlefield sites, the blockhouse, for example, you need local access. A lot of the sites are owned by the Egyptian military, and you need their permission if you want to go out there. There's a lot of unexploded ordnance in the area, and a lot of sites are sort of out of bounds, and we tried to provide as much information as possible for sort of potential tourists to this area. So what I wanted to do in this video is sort of recap, almost a very quick slideshow of what happened. This first photo is myself in August 2012 on the Italian memorial. It's sort of on the main road northwest of El Alamein towards Mersa Matruh. I should point out, El Alamein today, back then it was a very small town. Today it's a tourist. It's many tourist resorts for sort of the wealthier Egyptian residents of Alexandria and Cairo, and sort of escape from the city. And there's all these little pockets of resorts all along the coast. Beautiful coastline, which you may see in some of these images. This is right on the coast, actually. The Italian Memorial, the Italian Museum and Memorial, and the German War Memorial, which I'll show in a moment, are both situated almost right on the coast, just to the right of this image here. So we documented these sites. We took thousands of photographs, of which we used about 4 per site, and I will show you the reports we produced and some of the information that we produced. Put these on our website, and it was very successful for a number of years. And this is coming just after the Arab Spring, and we were also assessing, I guess, the safety of these sites and the feasibility, really, of people visiting these sites on their own. So I want to go back to one of the first sites we visited, and this was the El Alamein Military Museum. Here is the report we produced. So this is sort of my PDF summary of some of the information we provided. This all went up on a website as well, and it looked very attractive. We took it down about 2 years ago. We felt a lot of the information by that stage, by 2020, 2021, in fact it was, or may have been outdated, and so we removed that information. We took the whole website down. You can still visit it on Wayback Machine. If you search for Australian History International Explorer Guide, you'll see much of this information in a much more attractive format. This is a partnership between my university, the University of New England, Monash University down in Victoria, and smarttraveller.gov, the Department of Foreign Affairs and Trade, the Council for Australian-Arab Relations. The latter two, they're part of the Australian government. So this is the front entrance to the El Alamein Military Museum. It was pretty much our first stop on leaving Cairo. It's quite a drive to El Alamein, and we stopped at the Military Museum. There's the Peace Memorial, which holds sort of centre place within the grounds of the museum, and the building around the outside contains rooms like this with various works of art, dioramas, mock-ups of the situation, maps, photographs, and the like, much as you'd sort of expect in a museum. One of the highlights was the external grounds of the museum, where there are various vehicles, armored vehicles, and aircraft that were retrieved from the region in the aftermath and have been sort of stored on the site. Fair warning: if you're going to visit here, a lot of the information is incorrect, but it's quite fascinating to see these vehicles, and you can probably just see the beach in the background because this museum is also on the coastline. Yeah, yeah, northwest of El Alamein. From there, we went to the El Alamein War Cemetery. This is run by the Commonwealth War Graves Commission, and since the First World War, the Commonwealth War Graves Commission has done a remarkable job in working with local governments, local communities in maintaining, building and maintaining these sites over the years. And this cemetery in particular, the El Alamein War Cemetery, was amazing. I'm kind of almost lost for words. It's a haunting site, but also a beautiful site. And as you can see there, it's just 500 metres down the road from the El Alamein War Museum. Both of these sites are open to the public, so accessibility for these was no problem at all. Yeah, as I said, we took thousands of photographs of these sites, and I think we featured 4 per site. So here's another view. This is from inside. You can see the cross right down the end here. Cemeteries, graves, sorry, throughout the site. 6,400 identified Commonwealth soldiers, 800 unidentified. Included are about 1,188 Australians from various arms, mostly the 9th Division. But yeah, Australian Airmen were also heavily involved, etc. You can walk to the top, and this is a view from the top. And again, it's a remarkable site. If you do visit Egypt, particularly for British, Canadian, South African, Indian, Australian visitors, heading out to El Alamein, you must visit this site if you're nearby. It's not close to Cairo. It's not close to Alexandria. It is quite a drive. I can't remember exactly, but we're looking at it's almost a whole day drive or a half day drive. And just some examples of the many photographs. This one of AHL Godfrey. Yes. There are, here's an example. This is the memorial to the 9th Division. And we took, this is in an awkward position. It's a lot of these sites that were originally built, and sort of residential areas and industrial areas have sort of been built up around them. So the 9th Division Memorial is publicly accessible. It's easily just available on a sort of side road, but it almost sits in the middle of nowhere. It is closer to those resorts and residential and industrial areas, so it's kind of just, it pops up. A lot of these sites, in fact, are just sort of seem to be placed in unusual positions. So yeah, this is the 9th Division, which played a key role in the North Africa campaign. Here's a South African memorial. I can't actually remember where this one was, but again, probably just on the side of the road. There's the Greek memorial. There are other memorials in the area as well. This one is the one I was just thinking of, the mark of the furthest Italian advance into Egypt. And this just sits on the edge of the highway. There's nothing sort of in the area. It is just a little marker, which I didn't know about in advance. This one we just happened to drive past, and as we were driving, I saw the 1942. I think we asked to pull up with our guides. If you are visiting these sites, incidentally, my first recommendation was to take a guide with you, preferably a local guide, somebody who knows the area. A lot of the guides from Cairo and Alexandria will not know the local people and local communities and local authorities, and you will need their permission to visit some of the areas I'll talk about in just a moment. This is the German War Cemetery and Memorial. It is on its way west, so both the German and the Italian memorials are very close to each other. Both, as I said, on the coast. The coast is just in the background off to the right there. And both fascinating memorial designs. I could go into a lot of detail. I kind of teach the history of memorials, but I go into a lot of detail of the memorial designs. I think I have some internal images. So here we are. These are sort of tomb chambers within the cemetery, and here you can see the Mediterranean, the view out to the northeast. Yes, and the obelisk standing at the centre. This is now the Italian military shrine and one of the most impressive sites in this area. Again, so it's right off the highway. You park on the edge of the highway leading out west towards Mersa Matra and the border with Libya. And you walk, you park, you walk, that's me walking up. I didn't realize I was in this photo. And this is the military shrine itself. You can climb, I think from memory, you can climb to the top of this. But here you see the interior commemorative walls throughout that shrine. Yeah, remarkable. And attached to that is this military museum as well, with a lot of international artifacts, but focusing on Italian items in particular. Now, this is the El Alamein battlefield sites, and this is where you really need that extra permission that I was talking about. This is the El Alamein railway stop, kind of in towards El Alamein itself. El Alamein is the town, but then it's all stretched out along the coast. So all these resorts are really stretched out with sort of big gaps between them. And this one is in kind of a quiet area of El Alamein, and it's the old railroad stop. So the British knew that this area could have the potential for strategic significance in the late 1930s. And they enhanced, through the late 1930s, they enhanced the accessibility and the utility of this region. El Alamein lies in a kind of relatively narrow coastal path between the Mediterranean Sea and the Qattara Depression to the south. Any of you who've sort of played or have studied this geography will probably know it very well, know why it was an important defensive position. And so from the late 1930s, the British were building boxes, ineffective defensive strong points throughout the El Alamein region. So they were kind of planning in advance just in case. And the railroad stop here played an important role, as often the first point that many would have seen as they passed into and through this area. Here's the railway line itself. There's another one with me in the background. Not necessarily playing an important role beyond El Alamein, but it became sort of the focal point for fighting. So the next image, I think, is the blockhouse. And this contained the workers' huts who worked on the railway. And as one of the few structures in the area in 1942, it became sort of the focus for fighting. There was what was called, I think it's called the Bowl, which was the focus of fighting, which is just actually behind the blockhouse here, in that direction, 500 to 1,000 metres sort of northwest of here. This is looking, from memory, northwest. And yeah, this building itself, as one of the few structures in the area, became a focal point for fighting. Then we have some Australians. We also, throughout the website, provided some historical context on individuals and units. Here we have the 2nd, 3rd Pioneer Battalion I think they're on the railroad embankment, close to the blockhouse. This image is from the Australian War Memorial. So yeah, throughout the site we provided these kind of details. That's inside the military museum. Here we have some of the aircraft and vehicles. That's again the Knights Memorial. That's the El Alamein War Cemetery, the South African War Memorial, the railroad stop. German, me, Italian, German. This is also inside the German War Memorial and Cemetery. Really, as I said, really fascinating site, really interesting architecture and art and design inside. The blockhouse again, these are some of the local people who we needed permission, so our guides had to negotiate access to these sites because it's on sort of private land, I think. You absolutely must secure their permission and organise it well in advance and be very clear on what the conditions of your access are. And follow your guides very, very closely and tightly. Don't go wandering off. As I said, there are further west, northwest, west, there is areas you cannot go. Unexploded ordnance and the like. Okay, so we did, from there, from El Alamein, we initially wanted to go further west to Mersa Matra, Hellfire Pass and Libya. But at this time in 2012, we were not allowed to because it wasn't safe. So El Alamein is as far west as we got. From there, we came back to Alexandria and we visited. There were sorry, I'm trying to get my information. From there, we visited Alexandria, and there was a cemetery in the area, the local Commonwealth War Graves Commission cemetery in the area. Now, I won't show all the pictures, but I'll show you our compiled report. Again, this is a summary. So this is the Chatby War Memorial and Military Cemetery. Eastern part of Alexandria between Al Haraya and the Mediterranean Sea. Then, again, some historical sort of context and backgrounds. Again, another view of the War Memorial. Check the opening hours for this one. So a lot of the metropolitan, this one's in Alexandria, metropolitan cemeteries have more restrictive opening times. This one in particular, the Chatby one, another historical context. Then there's the Hadra War Memorial Cemetery. This one is further south. I said it's located in the east, but it's actually further sort of south of the Al Haraya, close to the University of Alexandria. So it's more the southern half of Alexandria. A bit more difficult to access if you're staying in Alexandria, where most of the sort of accommodations on the coast in the north. This one was a bit more difficult to get to. It's further south, but easier to get into once you're there. And some more historical context, which I won't go into, and that's Alexandria. From there, from Alexandria, we went out to Suez, went to Port Said, and there are a number of, so there's Port Said, there's Tel El Kebir War Memorial Cemetery, there's Fayed Cemetery, there's the Suez War Memorial Cemetery, Nismalia, and Moasco. There's cemeteries throughout this area, bearing in mind that Australians and British and New Zealanders and Indians also fought along the Suez and in this region during the First World War. So Australians and New Zealanders, among others, were based along the Suez Canal, and so there are, as you can see here, Hospital Centre Port Said received the wounded and sick from Gallipoli, the Gallipoli campaign in 1915. So a lot of those who didn't recover are buried in Port Said War Memorial. And this one is right smack bang in the middle of the city and right next to a public memorial, a cemetery as well. Again, administered by the Commonwealth War Graves Commission and by locals and communities. And this one, I don't think I have many photos of this one, but I do have thousands of photos, but this is the one we used. And the grass is so green in this otherwise very dry environment. And it is testament to the amazing work that these people put into caring for these sites. It is an immense duty to do so, and I cannot praise the Commonwealth War Graves Commission and their many diverse partners and stakeholders enough. Some more historical context, which I won't go into, but I'll scroll down to the Tel El Kebir War Memorial Cemetery. This one, so it's Tel El Kebir is sort of close to the Suez Canal. Served as a hospital centre during the Second World War. 526 Second World War Commonwealth War Graves, 20 of which are Australian at this site. Scrolling down to the Fayed War Cemetery. This one was another, look, every cemetery has a different aesthetic, environment, architecture, and context to it. And this one was another, fair to say, beautiful site. Very large. So Fayed is a relatively small town overlooking the dazzling blue waters of the Great Bitter Lake. 4 kilometres south of the town centre, almost sort of on the outskirts of town, and another remarkable site. 190 of the graves were moved. I don't know how many Australians were here. Really, what I remember about this one, what stands out, again, this is 12 years ago, was the diversity of graves throughout the area. But yeah, another one well worth visiting if you're heading along the Suez Canal there. Some more historical context. Again, we provide that for information. Another view of the grave and a name, the manicured lawn. Now, they didn't know we were coming. This is just what it looks like generally. Extremely well maintained, extremely well cared for. Here we go. The memorial, that's the memorial itself. You can see here, it's described the names of 265 troops from East Africa, Sudan, West Africa, who fought with the British in non-operational zones. Yeah. Then we have the Suez War Memorial. It's, as I said here, 7 kilometres west of the Suez town centre, 890 Commonwealth war graves, 55 Australians, and here again, 42 from the First World War, 13 from the Second World War, and originally opened in 1918. So again, the history, it's over a 100-year history of some of these sites, and really remarkable, the work that's done. Again, note the manicured lawns and the care on every aspect of these sites. And again, some of these examples, we took photos of thousands of these. Why did we do this? There's a lot of research, not part of my research, but there's a lot of research on the messages that parents could send to be inscribed on these graves. And it's a historical record itself. These gravestones are a very important historical record, not just the details of A.R. Ralph from the Imperial Camel Corps, but the messages down the bottom here. Really touching and, emotional messages. This is Malia War Memorial Cemetery. I vaguely recall this one. Ismaili lies halfway between Port Said to the north and Suez to the south. Yes, struggling to remember this one. A bit of history. Kantara War Memorial Cemetery. Now, I will point out some of these, I think this is one where we weren't allowed to go inside. One of these memorials, I think it's the Kantara, it might be Moaska as well. No, we were allowed to go inside Moaska. Kantara is based on, if I'm right, West Kantara, further 3 kilometres down the road. I think this one required permission from the Egyptian military because it's based inside an Egyptian military base. And we had permission, we'd organised permission in advance, and when we arrived, there was a security situation for various reasons, and we weren't allowed in on the day. So we sat in the car outside the military base and drove elsewhere. So yes, this is kind of one of the be prepared for closed access. Scrolling down, we then visited Moaska War Cemetery. This is, I apologise, you will need to apply for a security pass through the military attaché. I can't recall if this is my photograph or if this is a public record. No, this is from the Commonwealth War Games Commission. Okay. So this is the one where I think we weren't allowed access to. I don't know why I don't have one of our images of Kantara. Maybe we didn't visit it for some other reason. So Moaska is the one that is difficult to access. Okay, and then from there, this is all along the Suez Canal. There's what, 6, 7 cemeteries and memorials along the Suez Canal. Then there are the memorial sites, and there are 2 main. There's the Heliopolis War Cemetery and the Cairo War Memorial Cemetery. So let me show you Heliopolis. This is kind of our report on Heliopolis. It's kind of, it says short 6 kilometre drive from the airport, 10 kilometres from the centre of Cairo, in quite a popular kind of commercial area of Cairo. A lot of sort of commercial shops, residential areas. Quite a nice area of Cairo. Again, the manicured lawns. This is by my photographer, Chris Karkides. This is one of my photographs. So I took Mike. He was a expert photographer. I don't even know what camera. I think I had a little digital camera, so I took some photographs as well. But this is and I just kind of threw them in from time to time. But this is another fascinating cemetery in Cairo itself. Then that was Heliopolis, and then there's the Cairo War Memorial Cemetery. And this one was remarkable because it's kind of just tucked into, it's almost hidden in this massive residential area of Cairo. It's in the old Cairo cemetery area, only a short distance from the centre of Cairo. A number of other cemeteries in the area, and you need to identify the location of the cemetery clearly and check this with drivers or guides before setting off, because it is just so hidden, tucked away, difficult to find in this kind of maze of roads in this area of Cairo. But once you're inside, again, quite remarkable. Another amazing mix of graves in this area. We gave some historical background. There are 513 Australians buried there. It's surrounded by this quite thick, high concrete wall. And this is another reason why it was hard to find, because there's walls everywhere, and you wouldn't know there's a cemetery behind that wall if you didn't know exactly where you were heading. It's also a big block, and you need to access on one particular side of the cemetery. So, that was a project we completed back in 2012. We had the website up and running within a couple of weeks. It was very well visited initially for the first 6, 7, 8 years, and we found that by 2019 visits were dropping, and we were worried that the information was outdated, so we took it down. So it's no longer available. But my recommendation now is, if you are interested in visiting these sites, get in contact with local guides. There are some amazing local guides. They were outstanding. They helped us throughout our visit. If you're heading out to El Alamein region, the Cairo and Alexandria guides can help facilitate, but it's best if you get somebody local to help you. This was all designed to, as I said, provide that information for prospective visitors, to inform them of what they needed to know if they wanted to visit these sites. From the memorials in Cairo, the cemeteries in Cairo, through to the more obscure and difficult to access sites out towards El Alamein. As I said, we had planned to go to Lebanon, and we were looking at Libya and Mersa Matruh, but we were told we weren't allowed to go further than El Alamein at the time because of the risks of going further out west in the Western Desert in 2012. And our plan to Lebanon was cancelled at the last minute, which was unfortunate, because we had the Australians, of course, were active in I've forgotten the name of the Vichy, against the Vichy French, but I've forgotten the name of the campaign. Exporter, I think. And so our trip was cancelled at the last minute due to some local issues around the airport. So we weren't allowed to fly to Lebanon. We had to divert elsewhere. Okay, so folks, that's just a bit of a context to my thinking around North Africa 41. Thanks for watching, and take care.